The proceeding will start shortly.
Order. Good morning. Thank you very much for coming to our committee today. For the benefit of the tape and those watching on Parliament TV, can you kindly introduce yourselves and your organisation, please? I'll start with you, Liz.
I'm Professor Liz Barnes, Vice-Chancellor and Chief Executive of Staffordshire University.
Thank you.
I'm Tansy Jessup, Pro-Vice-Chancellor of Education at the University of Bristol.
Thank you.
And hello, my name is Jo Grady and I am the General Secretary of the University and Colleges Union.
Thank you. I'm going to bring in, first of all, my colleague Nicola, and who has to go to another bill committee, so she's coming in first.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for coming. My first questions are to Professor Tansy Jessup. Obviously, it's been in the news recently and throughout the year about Professor David Miller and his views. And so my first question is, and sorry to go straight into this, but his views, including his belief in anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, were well known before he was hired by the university. Why were his views not considered when he was hired, and what steps has the university taken since then to prevent them from hiring anyone else who shares anti-Semitic conspiracy theories?
Firstly, can I say that the inquiry is completed, and I'm not able to say anything more than is in the press statement of the 1st of October, where we made clear the dismissal of David Miller and the reasons for that. It's confidential. He may be appealing the decision, so I cannot go into the David Miller case. In terms of our recruitment and hiring policies, like every good organisation, we have fair and equitable policies at Bristol. We hire people on their academic reputation, their capacity to teach, their research profile, and we stand by decisions we make to hire the best people on the day of, I wasn't involved in the hiring, but our policies are to hire in a fair and equitable way. So that's what we do in our HR.
In a number of the university's communications on this, the university sought to paint a balance between views and concerns about anti-Semitism and others suggesting that the remarks were legitimate. So does the university accept by in doing so there's been tacit support for those eroding the lines on anti-Jewish racism by not firmly coming out and being really firm in opposition to those comments?
An independent inquiry was ongoing while these media stories were circulating. We cannot comment on things while an independent inquiry is ongoing. The university has followed due process. They've had a Queen's Counsel, independent counsel, and they've come out with an outcome which is robust and has followed due process. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Please feel free to go to your bill committee. Thank you. Christian.
Thank you, Chair. To carry on in the current line of questioning, are you a safe space for Jewish students?
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, when speaking to a number of JSOC members, they've been particularly concerned, one, about the length of time the inquiry is actually taken, and two, whether or not the IRA definition of anti-Semitism has actually truly been adopted. Would you say that's a fair argument?
The university has adopted the IRA definition. We were at Senate in 2019 when we adopted it, and we have met again and again with Jewish students and the chair of the Jewish Society. He came to our university executive board recently. We've got an ongoing dialogue with our students. We are a university that prides ourselves on diversity. We stand up for academic freedom, and we stand up to have an inclusive community where our students feel they belong. And I think this inquiry is actually about the pandemic and coronavirus. That was my understanding of why I was here.
I'll follow through with just a few very quick questions, and I'm sure we will get onto the pandemic later. Obviously, having adopted the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, when is the university actually going to start enforcing it?
The university has a number of training programs we run. We've, in recent times, in our Inclusion Matters series, We've run one on Islamophobia and on anti-Semitism quite recently. We're addressing in every way any of the inclusion matters, just as the whole sector is keen to listen to different voices, to value different people, and to be a safe space for disagreeing, for upholding academic freedom, for learning from one another. The mission of universities is to be spaces where diversity reigns, where we actually have a global diverse community where we accept differences in faith positions, differences in beliefs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Christian.
One final question, Chair, and that would be, what actions is the university going to take to actually repair the damaged relationship with the Jewish community? And how is the university going to ensure that Jewish students aren't afraid to go to Bristol, as I know that many are?
You're making assumptions here, and I think all of our students we value, and we have our student union has a number of societies. We're in constant dialogue with our students. I meet fortnightly with our student union sabbatical officers. We've got equality liberation officers on that. We have a constant dialogue with our students to ensure that they feel included and that they belong at Bristol. Bristol is a university that prides itself on diversity. It was the first university in England to have women graduates.
Could you just answer specifically his question, which is about Jewish students?
Yes, Jewish students are welcomed, accepted, and feel included at Bristol.
Could I ask you, do you acknowledge that, and we're entitled to ask any questions that we like, because the universities are, at the end of the day, funded through the taxpayer and the loan system. Does the university acknowledge that David Miller's conduct was anti-Semitic?
I have said, and I'll say it again, that I was not part of the inquiry, and that Bristol has conducted an independent investigation with an outcome, and there is an appeal pending, and I cannot say any more because the inquiry is confidential.
I mean, that's but you could. But if you've removed David Miller from your university, there would have been a reason for it. So are you?
Yes, and this press statement, I can quote you chapter and verse on the press statements on our website. And it says that he was not removed for unlawful speech, but he was removed for disciplinary reasons because he wasn't in this press statement adhering to the codes of conduct we expect from our staff.
Let me ask you this question then. In your statement, because you said you want to quote the university statement, you said, "We recognise that these matters have caused deep concern for people on all sides of the debate, and that members of our community hold very different views from one or another." And by all sides, do you mean racist and anti-racist? And why did your statement on the case ignore the fundamental point that the harassment of Jewish students at your university was nothing short of anti-Semitic?
We stand against all bullying, harassment and racism at Bristol University, whether that be Islamophobia, anti-Semitism or racism of any description.
What
we have
did you
an
mean by
anti-racism.
all sides? What did you, in the statement when you said concern for people on all sides, are you talking about the racists who, or the and the anti-racists? Is that what you meant by all sides?
We mean by all sides anyone who is affected by the case.
I mean, can you understand why? I mean, I certainly, and I've been to your university, and I recognise it's one of the great universities, but I certainly, given what's gone on, would not recommend any Jewish person to go to your university. And I say that with great sadness because I think you're a hostile place for Jewish students, and I think what's gone on and the time it took to deal with the situation was pretty appalling. And do you not feel that you've let down Jewish students who are incredibly upset and concerned about the way the university handled this particular case?
I think the real question is whether we are a university that prides ourselves on diversity and inclusion of Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, any faith or cultural background. And the answer to that question is yes. We look after all our students, and the proof of that is that where there were complaints and where there have been complaints, we have conducted independent inquiries into them, and we've had a disciplinary hearing.
If you look into what went on and how long it took, I think that most Jewish students feel that your university is a hostile place for Jews. And I certainly would tell, if anyone asked me who was Jewish, should they go to Bristol, I would say go a million miles from your university, given what's gone on. Because I feel that it was handled incredibly badly. And I say that with great sadness because I recognise you're one of the great universities. Could I just ask the UCU, David Miller received a fair bit of support from the UCU members prior to and following his dismissal from Bristol. UCU Scotland passed a motion condemning the attack on David Miller by so-called Zionist lobby groups. And can you just confirm if the UCU supports David Miller's conduct, and if not, will you distance yourself from the UCU from this activity?
I would hope that you would understand that it is completely not appropriate for me to comment on this matter, neither on this specific case or on an individual.
Why is that?
It's not even permitted for me to really disclose whether a person is or isn't a member of a union. You will know that that is part of a...
Surely you're able to say whether you agree with the UCU Scotland motion condemning the attack on David Miller by his so-called Zionist lobby groups?
Again, I think it would be really inappropriate.
Why? Why was it wrong for you to say whether you agree or disagree with that?
But that, you're not asking me to say whether I personally disagree or agree with something. I am here in my capacity as General Secretary of UCU, and it will be inappropriate for me to be passing comments on the democratic structures of UCU, or indeed interfering by passing comment about individuals and their cases,
no, but this is just
which
about
still may be open to appeal.
Passed a motion.
But anything I say here about that could be used as part of any potential appeal in this case. It would be really inappropriate and potentially flying quite close to legal restrictions on what I should and shouldn't say in my role as General Secretary.
Well, can you understand that Jewish groups who see that the UCU in Scotland believes that the Professor David Miller has been attacked by Zionist lobby groups? Can you feel how upset that they are?
I can completely understand.
And they will be expecting you to say, well, actually, I don't agree with this because I value all our Jewish members and Jewish students. But
I can completely understand that, but what I would ask you to understand in the framing of your question is you are asking me to step into a space where I would be potentially in breach of GDPR, in breach of...
no, you're not, because this is a public motion, and you can just say whether you agree with it or not.
No, because as General Secretary of UCU, there are particular things that I should and should not be saying about people who may or may not be members, about people who may or may not be appealing any of these things, and that is not a reflection of my personal views on how Jewish students, Jewish members, anybody Jewish watching this may feel, but I am asking you to understand that you are asking me to comment on things that would be inappropriate.
Well, I think what you're doing is giving me a non-answer, and I think that will be very upsetting for Jewish students and the Jewish members of your union, because you could know what's gone on, and I think it's very sad that the UCU Scotland chose to take this point of view, this motion. Caroline.